Yo, does this mean Clemson is one of the two most talented teams in the entire country?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
ESPN has already released their way too early preseason All-Americans for college football for next season. You could say the ACC is well represented, but it's really only a couple teams that are well represented. Thank you so much to the Everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. On this episode, I'm sure Kenton is very upset about this, but North Carolina Tar Heels have extended head basketball coach Hubert Davis. A couple of weeks ago, we were wondering if he would make it to next year. He's going to be making it to 2030. And yeah, we're going to talk about these way too early football All-Americans. And like Kenton, I want to start here. I guess this was a mild surprise for me out of all the quarterbacks in the country. I'm not going to complain about it because I'm happy he plays in the Atlantic Coast Conference, but Cade Klubnik, first team All-American preseason, according to ESPN. Does that surprise you at all?
Not at all, because like we talked about with yesterday's listing, Cade Klubnik was at the top of it. And did you get any argument from me? I'm not the type of person that's going to say something on air just to drum up controversy. When I said, hey, Cade Klubnik probably is the guy that's looking like the best, and on top of him looking like the best as an individual, he's also going to have the pieces back next year to where you're going to look around and say, well, damn, that Wesco kid is a little faster than we thought. He high points the ball a little better than we thought. Well, Brown might be healthy. Well, Williams is Williams. He is the young man that is, again, he's shown the most last year and is going into the situation where there's the most continuity and the most talent around him. So I don't really see this as like oh man, I'm shocked and surprised. This was to be expected. The only thing I didn't expect was maybe I haven't been paying attention enough. We're doing way too early All-American teams in February. We ain't even in March Madness yet. And
I love it personally.
Yeah. That's the only surprise.
It is never too early. I would have had one of these if I had the resources that they have at ESPN. I would have had one of these out the day after the season ended, if we're being quite honest. And listen, it's like Klubnik, and we've talked about him a lot in recent episodes of Locked On ACC, coming off a really good year last year, one of only two FBS quarterbacks with more than 3,600 passing yards and 400-plus rushing yards. And, you know, he, like a game against Pitt, he put it away with his legs, scoring about a 50-yard touchdown. So Klubnik is a dual-threat guy. And, you know, I don't know, Kenton, if he really even considered going pro after last season. It didn't seem like he did. But he's really going to benefit from being a super senior this year because you coming off a really good season last year, but he's got so much continuity. And Clemson, in fact, Kenton, they returned more than 80% of their production from last season, leading the entire country in I think it's 81 or 83% returning from Clemson. So that stability and that continuity. And of course, Klubnik is a big part of that coming off a good year. I think he's in a really good situation. So again, I don't necessarily think he's the most talented quarterback in America. I don't know if he's going to be the number one overall draft pick next year or anything like that, but he's a really good quarterback in a great situation. And I think that's going to translate to him very possibly living up to that way too early first team quarterback status.
Yeah. And I think that there is, you know, you talk about draft and all that stuff. That's way far away. We ain't even got past this draft yet, but I will say this.
Hey, it's never too early.
Apparently. But there is something to be said there in the vein of, you know, is it possible to be successful with an all-new casting group? Yes, it's possible. It's just exponentially less likely than being successful with guys who know the system, with guys who know, hey, he wants me to, when he throws a bang-aid, it's going to be a little bit behind back here on my hip, and I know I need to be prepared to make that turn and catch, or he, you know, whenever he's a little juiced up, the ball is going to go high a little bit, so I need to know when we start out big games, every throw, I need to be, okay, is it, you know, they know those things, and that continuity means a lot. So you're absolutely right there in terms of that. And also, the statistics part of this thing is something that I think is greatly undervalued about Cade Klubnik, because so much of America does their eye test off of what they saw from Cade Klubnik, and that may have been only Georgia. If your estimation of Cade's season last year was only Georgia, I have bad news for you. It only got better from there. If your estimation of Cade Klubnik was that, you talk about him putting the Pitt game away with his legs. He put the NC State game away with his legs. I know what some people are thinking. It was a blowout. Yeah, well, when it was teetering and it looked like NC State was going to do something potentially, he burst out with a 70-something yard run or 60-something yard run where he goes untouched. So, this young man is a phenomenal athlete, and he is figuring it out as a passer. He's figuring it out as a decision maker, which was always the thing that would get Cade in trouble. Nobody ever said, hey, he doesn't have the arm talent. He doesn't, even when he makes the right decision, he can't put the juice on it. Nobody's ever said, oh, his legs just aren't there. And, he's a statue back there. If he can't, if it's not a first read is there, he's done. Nobody's ever said that about him. It's always been, can he make good decisions? And it seems like his processing and his understanding of the game, in the words of the lethal shooter, I understand it now. He gets it. It's now clicking for him. Things are slowing down. So you combine that with that continuity, with his talent, oh, boy, we could be looking at a very special season for Clemson next year.
And the reason why I asked at the top if Clemson's one of the two most talented teams in the country, they're actually tied with Ohio State for the most way too early preseason All-Americans with 3. Ohio State's got 3, Clemson's got 3. The other 2 are on the defensive side of the ball. Let's talk about who else made this list from the ACC. Let's go through all the positions. Notre Dame's Jeremiah Love, one of the first-team running backs. That's ACC adjacent, not really ACC. Nicholas Singleton, running back from Penn State. Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver from Ohio State. Ryan Williams, I should say, wide receiver from Alabama. Tight end Max Clare from Ohio State. Miami's Francis Mauigoa makes first team. Mauigoa, a right tackle. Kenton, who is, I've been covering, Mauigoa since the start of his college career. He was starting on that Mario Cristobal offensive line as a true freshman 2 seasons ago. The young man is just built different. IMG Academy, originally from the Pacific Islands. That dude has had grown man strength since he was probably 14. That is one to watch at right tackle all the time.
I am, you talk about first round or first overall pick type of guys. He's a first overall pick type of guy. He is the type of guy that he is going to shore up somebody's offensive line for the next 10 years in the NFL. The question is, who needs the help? Because, and again, I personally don't think that he would look good in any color but Honolulu blue, me personally. But he's going to be a fantastic pro. He's going to be a fantastic college player this year as well. Because, even last year, he has addressed all of the meaningful concerns in his game in a very powerful way. At this point, he's playing with the church's money.
So he's got first overall pick talent. I think he's not going to be a first overall pick, and it's primarily because, 2 reasons. 1, usually people take quarterbacks, but 2, that he's only got film at right tackle in college, and, somebody's going to fall in love with a left tackle. Left tackles usually go first, but yeah, Mauigoa has the talent, no question. Other first teamers. The offensive lineman from Penn State, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, makes first team guard. Thankfully, we're not locked on Big Ten. I don't have to try it. Jake Slaughter, the center from Florida. Caden Green, guard from Mizzou. Spencer Fano, the tackle from Utah. Desmond Reed, Pitt, makes all-purpose. So that's and Pitt, by the way, is pretty well represented. They've got another one on this list, but Des Reed is. I'm glad all-purpose out of whatever that is. You can line him up anywhere. He makes a spot in first team, and I'm happy for him.
Des Reed is a Swiss Army knife. When you think about what he is out of the backfield, when you think about what he is, when you split him out, when you think about what he was, I believe he started off his career as a return man, or am I incorrect there? Am I making that up?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
he's, literally, he's one of those guys that when he was in high school, I'm sure they didn't even have a position for the kid. They were just like, hey, you go out there, get Des the ball. That's the play. Okay. Do you want to go in motion when you get the ball, or do you want to be in the backfield and we toss it to you on the pitch? You figure that out, Des, and we'll work around you. But no, seriously, Desmond Reed is phenomenal. He's one of those ones that's like, wherever you can get his hands on the ball, you do it. And you figure it out and you make it happen from there.
So defense now is where Clemson is very well represented in the trenches. So defensive end TJ Parker, defensive tackle Peter Woods, both way too early, All-American preseason. And Kenton, those are just illustrate, and they're not the only ones from Clemson who can play, but Clemson might have the best defensive line in the country.
I'm telling y'all right now, those two are going to make a third All-American on that defense. Those two are so special. You have to watch out for Parker off that edge. I have seen this kid play firsthand. He's built different. He's built different. Now, him and Woods as a combination, they're going to make a third All-American in Sammy Brown. They're going to make a third. I have no doubt in my mind, he's the next great Clemson linebacker. You know, I mean, when you hear Ben Boulware, former Clemson great himself, who's now their linebacker coach, talk about him, it's like, for those of you who know anything about Ben Boulware, he's already a very excitable guy. But when he talks about Sammy Brown, it's like a whole nother world. He's a dude. He's a guy. He's because he really is that. He jumps out all over the film. But these two in particular, oh man, I'm gonna tell you what. You talk about one of the best defensive lines in the country. I truly think that the peak of this defensive line, if they can perform to the level that their defensive coordinator is known for getting his guys to perform at, I mean, multiple back-to-back first rounders, Abdul Carter, Chop Robinson, and company, multiple guys who go on very, very early. Micah Parsons, another guy he coached. I mean this very genuinely. I wouldn't be surprised to see more of that out of Parker and Wood here because, again, those two are special, but their defensive coordinator, I believe, is a ceiling raiser for defensive line.
Another when we come back, another player who makes preseason All-America, another Pitt Panther. So Pitt, more representation than Miami, more than Florida State, more than everybody except Clemson. You want to keep it locked right here. We also have some hoops talk coming up. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Keep it locked. I'm only getting started with PrizePicks. Guys, this is my spot. I've been using the PrizePicks app for daily fantasy since 2021. I'm so happy that they're part of the Locked On family here. There is no better way to get in on the action now that we're heading into March basketball. No better way than PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you simply pick more or less on at least two players' stat projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, it's easy, and it keeps the game exciting. I love how I can make my picks in less than 60 seconds, guys, and stay engaged all game long. When I win, my money hits my account in as little as 15 minutes. No waiting around. And guys, today is Taco Tuesday. PrizePicks even offers weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, all one word, for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do an awesome job on Locked On Wolfpack covering NC State. I host Locked On Canes covering all things Miami. Looks like Miami's got a new basketball coach. We'll have an episode of The Squad coming up later this week on Locked On ACC as well. So Pitt, Kenton gets another first teamer in the way too early All-Americans, and that's linebacker Kyle Lewis, who's part of that Sharks unit, the Pittsburgh linebacking core. And boy, are they going to need to finish the year strong. Because again, Pitt last season started off like gangbusters, 7-0. Then they went on to lose all of their remaining games, including the bowl games. So we'll see if that defense can carry them into a more consistent year this year.
You know, when I think about Kyle Lewis, he is a blend of what you think about when you talk about modern linebackers with those throwback guys, right? When you think about him, I guess he would be a quintessential Pat Narduzzi linebacker. Because if you play linebacker for Pat Narduzzi, you're going to be able to fill a hole. I have never heard the criticism of any Narduzzi coach linebacker. Oh, yeah, he's terrible coming down here. He doesn't know what he's reading. He's just and Kyle Lewis is no exception to that. That young man is the type of guy that when you talk about what makes the Sharks so special, it's a leader who's that cerebral. And not only is he a guy who thinks through the game at a very high level, he's extremely physical. But not only does he have those things, if you are going to be an All-American in today's football game, unless you're in one of those front four positions, you're going to need to do a hell of a job in coverage, which he does as well. So I'm not surprised by this. The young man, if you turn on Pitt film, you will see this young man everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean, where is it? Who's that guy? Who's that guy that keeps being in the screen? What number? Who is he? Can we please get somebody to block that number 9 guy? And you can't, because again, he's all over the place. He knows where he explodes to the ball so fast. It feels like he knows where the ball is going before it even got there.
So that's it for the ACC first teamers. They did have a couple of second teamers. Isaac Brown, the Louisville running back, who, there's some good running backs on the list. Brown, obviously very deserving to at least be too deep on there. I'm glad that they gave him a nod. And Duke cornerback Chandler Rivers, who is excellent, also makes that list. I mean, anybody you feel really got left out, Kenton? And you think about some teams that were left out. I mean, I know Florida State just went 2-10, but they got a talented roster. They don't have anyone in the too deep. Louisville's got a talented roster. They just have one guy on the second team. Miami's only got one guy, and it's CC Mauigoa. So any teams or players you feel like didn't get enough love here?
I look at this list and I say to myself, it is way too early, so I'm going to let y'all cook. But there are still certain players that I'm a little bit surprised didn't get any nods, that didn't get any looks in terms of, hey, he was a hell of a ball player last year. I know that they don't do all freshmen, and even if they did do that, he wouldn't count. But that corner that y'all had last year was phenomenal. I'd be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if O.J. Frederick wasn't the guy who found his way onto a postseason All-American type list next year, because again, he was the very rare bright glimpse on an otherwise lackluster defense. So I'm surprised that he didn't make it. The homer in me wants to say Brandon Cleveland, that defensive tackle, who he was a game wrecker at times. But again, there's these guys who are here. They're all here for a reason. And it's tough to kind of take it away from some of these guys. But I will say this. Come the end of the season, I'm willing to guarantee this. You will see the ACC more represented at the end of the season than you do here. Yeah. And it will be from all over the place, because there are talented individuals all over the place in this conference that we've talked about ad nauseum, some that we've talked about at high level, some that we haven't gotten around to, but they'll pop out this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a couple of players that that are going to have to earn it and could get in there. And postseason is the one that counts, right? It'd be preseason is a prediction. Postseason All-America. I wonder about a guy like Miller Moss at Louisville. I mean, he's joining the right program, the right head coach to bring out the best in a quarterback. That's what Jeff Brom does, quarterback whisperer. So Miller Moss is somebody that I look at because he's talented quarterback stepping into a really good situation. Ruben Bain at Miami. I can understand him. Well, first of all, there's a lot of talented defensive linemen in America. If Bain had the type of season last year that he had the year before, I think he would be on this preseason list. So he's got to bounce back and earn it. So there are other players in the ACC that I think can end up being represented here.
Oh, of course. And if you're talking about transfers and what they could do and what they could be, Chris Johnson and Rhett Lashley's scheme. I mean, let's be very honest. He's a guy that anybody could look at and say, hey, he's one of those dudes that you could easily say, oh, yeah, he's going to be fantastic. He's one of those guys that he could play a very similar role to what we saw last year with Rashard Smith. Yeah, Rashard Smith, in terms of what he was to SMU, he could very easily be that for this team. And the one that surprised me the most, and I know, again, I'm okay with being called a homer here. I'm okay with that. In terms of looking at the tight end position, Max Clare was phenomenal. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Imagine a world where Max Clare was asked to be his team's leading receiver. How would that have gone?
That's a great point.
Because there's a guy in Raleigh named Justin Jolie that had to do it all as a tight end, because for whatever reason, he was his quarterback safety blanket. He was the snuggie that a true freshman named C.J. Bailey used to tuck himself in and get warm at night. And he did so spectacularly. Amazing after the catch, better at blocking than people give him credit for. And, hands are angel soft. So I'm very surprised that he wasn't, even if he wasn't the starter, wasn't mentioned on the second team either.
Coming up next, even though Tar Heels basketball hasn't exactly been up to their standards as of late, you better lock in your head coach until 2030. You better do that, Bubba Cunningham. We'll have that and more for you next right here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure for your next listen, you check out Locked On College Basketball. I mean, this is the time of year, and they do the show year-round, but this is when they really flex. Isaac Shade, who's part of our ACC squad, Andy Patton, they both do an incredible job taking you around the college basketball world as we're about to dive into the conference tournaments and the NCAA tournament. Now, a team that is, bubble if they're lucky right now for making that NCAA tournament are the North Carolina Tar Heels. They've only had one Sweet 16 run under current head coach Hubert Davis, and that was the first season that he took over for Roy Williams. So, the results, you certainly can't say the results have gotten better since his first year. They've gone in the opposite direction. So I find a couple things odd here, Kenton. So not only was it just announced today that Hubert Davis, UNC basketball coach, is getting extended. It's 2 extra years being tacked onto his contract. That's going to take him through 2030, through the 2029-2030 season. It seems like odd timing. And then actually, they held on to this news for about 2.5 months because the extension was actually signed on December 10th, which was the same day that North Carolina lost, I believe, to Alabama on that day. And that was the night when Bubba Cunningham, the AD, thought we better lock up Hubert Davis right now for an extra 2 years. So there we go.
Here's the thing about this, right? I could understand it if it was hey, we're getting close to your contract running out, so we got to do this. You kind of didn't have to. Like you kind of weren't at that point. And also, my biggest thought about it is, where else could Hubert have gone? Where else could he have went? Let's just say you say, hey, we're going to go ahead and just kind of wait it out, wait and see. Because while they're in the middle of a winning streak right now, and by all means, this is not hyperbole, this is not exaggeration. Yes, I'm doing my good deed and complimenting Tar Heels and whatnot. They are objectively the hottest team in the ACC. That is a fact. Even if it's not against great competition, even if you're not talking about teams that are necessarily gangbusters, they do, in fact, have one of the longest streaks in the ACC outside of Louisville. Nobody else can claim a 4-game or longer winning streak except them and Clemson. With that being said, I still would not, even in this moment, say I have to give you this extension. I'd say, listen, show me something. Don't get me wrong. We appreciate the deep run. Those were Roy's guys. Show us what you can do with your guys. I'm going to give you a general manager this year. Instead of money that I would pay into giving you a raise or giving you a vote, we're going to put that money into a GM. We'll get you all the supplies you could possibly need to succeed. And if you fail, then it won't be on us, because we've given you everything you need to be successful as the head basketball coach at this here University of North Carolina. With that being said, this extension, if I'm Hubert Davis, I'm over the moon. Because if I flop with the GM, now you still got to pay me. You still got to pay that buyout. Everybody's talking about the NBA right now and the Pistons turnaround. You know who the real winner of the Pistons turnaround is? Monty Williams. He's getting paid $80 million to not do anything anymore. So Hubert Davis could very well end up in that same very cushy gig of being paid tens of millions of dollars to sit on the couch.
Yeah, well, and like you said, they just hired a GM for basketball, so doesn't even have to buy the groceries. He's just got to coach him up. Somebody else is going to select the players, which I guess you could look at as a good or a bad thing, because if they select the wrong players, the head coach may get blamed for that ultimately. but it takes a little pressure off of him. So we'll and honestly, I don't know if you share this opinion, being the NC State guy, but I hope it works out because college basketball is better when the North Carolina Tar Heels are at or near the top. I truly believe that. Blue blood program, college basketball is not really college basketball if UNC isn't great.
Well, I vehemently disagree with that. Not because it's UNC, but because I don't believe that for any sport. I don't believe that college football is better when Alabama is good or when Miami is good or when Michigan is good. I grew up one of the biggest Michigan fans in the world. I would not say college football is better when Michigan is good, simply because, to me, sports are at their highest when there is not only great parity, but there is the mystique and aura around teams no longer exists. I think that's what's better for sport, in my opinion. With that being said, I will say this. I want everybody in the ACC to be better. I think we all can agree to that.
Sure.
Everybody that's not named Duke, hey, come on now. Let's get your stuff together. Let's go back to the days of the old ACC. Donno and I talked about this. From 2021 till now, we dropped off from 7 teams in the conference. And at that time, I believe the ACC was a 15-team conference? So basically, half of your conference, half. If you're in the ACC, congratulations. Be in the top half, your tail is going to the tourney. We went from that to hey, we got 3 teams and a possible. Me and Donno still learning how to play spades together. So, he's learning what a possible means. It's
I'm from Miami, so we play dominoes. We don't want to worry about the spades nonsense.
Hey, don't worry about it, Donald. Don't worry. You just ain't been to the right parts of Miami. We'll get you where you need to go to learn you some spades. But in all seriousness, as much as I talk about not liking the Tar Heels and all that, this is an ACC show, and in all fairness, I will admit the ACC is better when more teams are good. Hell, that's the truth. That's the and they are a great shot at being good because of that history, because of the Michael Jordans, the James Worthy, the Rasheed Wallace, all that good. That they are one of our best shots at being a really good conference. So more power to them in that respect.
Yeah, I know it's just 2 different opinions, but I'm going to stand in the paint on college football or basketball being better when the historically great teams are great. I respect the whole parity thing, but parity doesn't necessarily make for great ratings on TV. As I'm thinking college football, if we could get...
It's lost its way without Nebraska being great. College football has lost its way because Nebraska's big.
Obviously, we kind of moved on from the Nebraska thing, but could you imagine if we could get a year where all of the following teams are contending for playoff spots at the same time, like Alabama, USC, Miami, Notre Dame, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. Hell, I'll throw Nebraska in there because I grew up when I was a little kid. I'm old enough to remember when Nebraska was consistently at or near the top of college football. I'm old enough to remember. Throw them in there as well for bleeps and giggles. I feel like college football would be better if all those teams were contending for playoff spots at the same time. And I would say the same thing about the greats in college basketball. I feel like it would be so much more exciting for the casuals, right? I know the hardcore fans are going to watch, no matter who's good, but for the casuals, man, if you could get all of the UNCs and the Dukes and the Michigans and the UConns. I know they're
But that's why I like the other teams, because the other teams, not only do they bring you parity in terms of, hey, it's just a different logo. All of these teams are different and zany in all these crazy ways. Look at how Hawaii plays football. Do you ever see less than 3 wide receivers on the field for those guys ever? It's so amazing.
But I don't want to see them playing for a national championship. I want to watch Hawaii when it's 1 a.m. and I have insomnia and I know I can flip on. Oh, there's the Rainbow Warriors with 9 wide receivers lined up. I don't want to see them in the national championship.
Let me tell you something. Give me the run and shoot. Give me the triple option. Give me the wing. Give me that weird thing that they're doing at New Mexico with what is it? It's like the triple option, but they're in shotgun all the time. It's freaky. Right. I love it. Enough of this pro style mess. Enough of it. With basketball, enough of this pack line defense, man. Give me some go offense. Give me a team that's going to take it off the rim and immediately is running. Give me something different. I don't want to see this double braid action no more. We've seen it. I don't want to see no more horn sets. We've seen them a million times. Okay, give me something zany and wonky. That's just me personally.
All right, fair enough. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Whether you like parity and you want Hawaii to play in the college football playoff next year, or if you want actual teams that draw ratings, either way, smash that like button and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.